This is the story of two men named Tyler and Thomas. They spent their days bickering to each other about the sometimes old and rather outdated rides, attractions, shops and areas in the Walt Disney World theme park in Florida. They thought to themselves, what would they do if they had infinite time and money to change everything? And then, one day, something happened that would change them forever. They discovered a whole fan community of like-minded Disney fans who would appreciate their ramblings and hard opinions about theme park attractions put into a monthly podcast. And that is where our story begins. Welcome, foolish mortals. You're listening to Ride Rehab on WDWNT.com. And now, here are your hosts, Tyler Mann and Thomas Kiernan. Now, as they say, look alive, and we'll begin the show.
Welcome to Ride Rehab. I'm Tyler Mann.
And I'm Thomas Kiernan.
And joining us for this special episode is Ben Harris, Pete Kearney, Rob Whiteside, and Ashley Jasmer. You guys want to say hi?
Hey.
And some of you. Today Tom.
Today we are recording this episode live from inside the Imagineering offices after hours. Tyler, what are we doing here again?
Well, we're looking for the perfect Disney attraction, remember? There's got to be some old concept art for something never built, or weird guidelines for when they decide to make a good ride, or for whatever reason, a bad ride. Thomas, do you see anything on that table over there?
It looks like original Magic Kingdom plans.
Alright, let's see. Yeah, park layouts, secret tunnels under the secret tunnels, cryogenic slab, all the Haunted Mansion ghosts are real. Is there anything more recent?
Well, I found Joe Rohde's personal notebook, but it's just, I will fix the Yeti in increasingly frenzied handwriting for the entirety of this worn, leather-bound journal.
Well, this has been no help. Ben, Ashley, do you two see anything?
It looks like there's some blueprints here for generic magic school land. I can't possibly imagine what that would have been.
And I found some concept art to a new version of Journey into Imagination. Oh gosh, no. Figment, why are you talking to Rocket and Groot?
Oh. Pete, Rob, have you guys found anything weird?
Nah. I think that there might be some stuff in Pete's shirt drawer.
Yeah, I keep looking, and honestly, there's some things I don't recognize that make me a little uncomfortable.
Okay, wait. I have an idea. Maybe if we sit here in this environment, like the Imagineering offices, for about an hour or so, maybe we can think like Imagineers and make the perfect ride. Okay, so there's got to be ride systems, whether or not something is an animatronic, particular Disney characters, IP, no IP. There's stuff that makes a ride good or not. And I think we should try and identify that. I'm going to take notes, and maybe by the end we can formulate, the perfect Disney ride. That'll probably work, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Crazier ideas work on those.
Yeah.
I concur entirely.
All right. So I guess where should we start? What makes a good ride? What's a good ride? Someone throw out what's a good ride at Disney?
Adventure. Have a story.
Yeah.
Story.
That's the one thing that separates the good Disney rides from the good Universal rides is a solid story that you care about.
Goes without saying, Disney always said that these were stories or shows. Everything was story based or driven. I mean, a good example is Haunted Mansion. It has this beginning, this middle, this ending. Mm-hmm. It's not really hey, everyone. I mean, it's not. Here's an example of a bad one is Frozen Ever After, where they're like, hey, everyone, you're going to Elsa's Ice Castle. Have fun. There's no reason. It's just go see Elsa. So I'll be sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like the dark rides, though, in that regard, do kind of get a pass a little bit, because that was always kind of their shtick. You're going into the movie. So that's almost their story. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't think of a dark ride that has a story separate from that.
Well, yeah,
But-
Peter Pan and Winnie the Pooh are two good examples where those ones are.
The ride starts in the queue.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, in Winnie the Pooh and Peter Pan, the ride starts in the queue. So Peter Pan, if you go in standby, you're actually walking through the bedroom and you see Tinkerbell and you get excited, and then all of a sudden you don't take off until you get on the ride, and then you take off into a whole new world. Same with Winnie the Pooh, you play with all the games, you understand what is Winnie doing, what's Tigger doing, what's Roo doing, and then all of a sudden you're reading the pages in the line, and all of a sudden the pages come to life when you start the ride.
You know, can I piggyback off that just to say pre-show? I mean, a good pre-show tells that story. I mean, if I think about Dinosaur, and like when I go through Dinosaur, it's telling a story through the pre-show. The pre-show has another reason to be there, is to separate the groups and to, you know, cue everybody up. But I mean, the stories that they tell in the pre-show there is stuff that lasts with you after you leave that ride. I mean, we're quoting them. We're telling other people, oh, this is what that story is all about. So Indiana Jones is the same way out in California. So I would definitely say the pre-show, but it's part of the story, and the pre-show is part, cue, pre-show, it's all part of the story. So I think all those things are important to a really good attraction.
Yeah, if you're trying to fit an attraction into a typical 3-act structure, the pre-show has to be your act 1. Because if you don't do that there and you try and do act 1 on the ride, it's going to be very uninteresting at the beginning of that ride, or you're going to have a very muddled act 1, because most rides aren't capable of doing the information loading that you need to do at that kind of point.
And again, to Pete's point, I mean, the queue can be the pre-show. It doesn't have to be like a literal show. I mean, the queue can be the beginning of the show.
I agree. I mean, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you can start... I mean, again, look at Haunted Mansion, walking through, the grounds, I guess, of whichever mansion and seeing the tombstones and everything. It's preempting you and setting you up for the actual pre-show. So I guess with that coherent theming, because if it doesn't fit, if they just throw it into the land, I mean, even personally to me, even if you put a good attraction with a good pre-show in somewhere where it doesn't seem to fit, you can't. It's hard to get into it versus something like, again, Everest is a good example where it preempts you for that. I mean, the second you walk up to it.
Oh yeah, you have that whole museum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with like everything about the Yeti. Is it real? And as you go along, it's like, yeah, the Yeti's definitely real. And then you get on that train, and then you see him and everything. Yeah, I mean, there's no pre-show to Everest, although you can argue that like the museum is. There's no like TVs explaining your expedition, right?
No.
Yeah.
But I think the queue is sort of the pre-show there, because as you're going through and you're seeing the footprints and you're seeing all of the kind of the lore, it is sort of gearing you up. But I think that kind of takes me to a point I would also want to make about story, is it's about execution of the story. I think that from what I remember, there was a lot more planned for that queue, and they ended up ditching it because it was going to be too expensive to do. There are some things like Pleasure Island where they have a huge backstory, but unless you're like a super fan, when you go do it, you never understood what the backstory was. And I think they tried to do that with Disney Springs and some other things that aren't necessarily attractions. But if they don't communicate that story or communicate like the premise to you correctly, if there's a fault in the execution, then the story doesn't matter at that point. It's got to be well executed. And I'm not exactly sure what that would be in this case, but I definitely think it needs to be something that everyone can understand as they go through it.
Well, to that end, about like queues and pre-shows, Soarin' has, like, would you say that's a good queue? It definitely has a pre-show as to what's happening, but there's not like story to it. It's not like there's a beginning, middle, end.
I was going to say it's entertaining. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a good queue.
I wouldn't know if I'd call Soarin' something with a story.
That's what I was going to say.
There's no plot to Soarin'. It is a series of experiences that you have. Those experiences are enjoyable, but there's no story here.
It's more a framing device than a story.
Yeah.
So framing devices, would those also be good or bad, or it's just it's not?
Well, if
inherently
all right,
It's
well,
not Disney
if
like.
I may
I
bring
wish
it
there
back
was
on-
more of a way they pulled you in for story, which made your experience unique or exciting. And granted, I love the line, I love the queue, and I love pre-show.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, though, there is sort of a pre-show with the Patrick Warburton because he's getting you ready to take off on this flight.
But there is no story.
Yeah, I mean that's more like safety instructions versus I mean he's themed, if you will, but he's not like
Yeah.
Sala in Indiana Jones where he's setting up a story. Like he's instructing you on how to board the ride, how to hook your belt.
He's just
Wow.
making fun of balding men. That's all he's
Like-
doing.
That's
Well,
another
yeah.
thing. Yes.
During that pre-show, you get to see almost exactly how the ride system operates. Like you see the gliders lifting up off the ground and kind of pulling into the screen in front of you. It's
Mhm.
not trying to hide anything here. That's not the point of that attraction.
Yes. Not every ride needs story. But
This is
if we're going to get
Carousel.
down to the carousel, yes. If we're going to get down to the nitty gritty of this, what constitutes the perfect? And we're trying to get to what constitutes the perfect Disney ride. Is a framing device better, or is a full fleshed out story better?
Well,
Story.
Tommy K.
Story.
Story. All right. Good.
I've got a comparison for you. Test Track version 1.0 and Test Track version 2.0. In Test Track 1.0, you had really sort of a story. They were going to take you out on the test track, and they were going to, you saw like the whole, here's us in the control room. We're getting your test ready.
Yeah.
2.0, it's like, hey, you get to make a car. I feel like maybe that's leaning more toward the framing device than it is the story.
That makes sense.
And a lot of people kind of hate Test Track 2.0 for that reason, that it took those elements out of it.
But then we
What
have
I love. This is why I love Everest. Is that no matter what line you're in, whether it's either the fast pass or the standby, you are learning all about Everest and the Yeti and what happened. Is he real? Is he fake? Here's our expeditions. You're on an expedition. You pull up. You see the steam train. This is a ride that could have easily just been a standard roller coaster and killed it. It would have killed it. But the queue makes up the story and the ride, and you're like, wow, we're on an expedition. We're looking for a Yeti, and then when the Yeti pops, it's awesome. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
let's speak about coaster. Oh, Tom.
Well, I was going to say, well, the next logical step, now that we've established that a story is a better point for a Disney ride, why don't we take the next logical step and see what that story, or figure out what that story would be? What do all the great rides have in common in their story elements? For example, all the rides have at least one part that is scarier than the rest of the ride.
Are you referring to Tigger's Bounce House of Doom or whatever?
Oh my gosh.
Well, that, and then
That's what I called it.
then you've got the attic in Haunted Mansion. You've got the Uncanny Valley in Carousel of Progress.
So does a perfect Disney ride need to have a scary bit in it?
Well,
This was actually important to Walt, so go.
I mean,
I don't
Snow
think
White
so.
Scary Adventures was
Yeah.
like 100% scary.
I think there's something about the scary elements, though, that kind of give you that little extra jolt of adrenaline. That it's a very valid point. You don't necessarily think about it, but a lot of the greats do have something, maybe not completely scary, but something that makes you feel a little uneasy.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom just blew my mind with that. Like, I'm running through all of them going, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking about the Frozen ride. I'm thinking,
Yep.
well, even like the big snowman coming up at the top before you fall down. No, it's not super scary, but it's a little more intense than the rest of it was, especially for a kid. I mean,
Mhm.
it's gotta
I mean, Maelstrom, the way Maelstrom was, where they're like, back over the falls. Like, that's
Yeah.
scary. That scared me as a kid.
That's why
Well,
they
and-
toned it down to Frozen.
Would Frozen have been better if Elsa was trying to kill you?
Oh my gosh.
Like, she like sets up giant spikes and stuff. like, yeah, the ride is like wholesome and everything, but could it have been better if like a bad guy showed up and she's like, get out of here, and then spikes shoot up and then we go backwards? That would have been that like scary bit, because good rides, we have to feel like we're gonna get murdered in them.
Yeah. To be fair though, I mean, Marshmallow pops up. I mean, he is kind of the bad guy, right? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah,
It's been a
the
while.
guy at the end of the movie, though.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, in that part of the story and everything, he's a bad guy. Like, isn't he the one that chases you over the...
No, he just turns you around.
You say good rides would feel like we're getting murdered, which for me is, what is Rock and Roller Coaster?
Yeah, right?
I mean, would you even
Death
say
by
that's...
Aerosmith.
That's driving on the 405. That is murder.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about bad rides then.
Well, actually,
For a minute.
I was going to say this is actually we can build on what we already have. So we've established it's going to have a longer story. Now, should that story be based on existing Disney IP, or should it be its own brand new thing?
Oh.
Which of the rides are better because they're original concepts, or which of the rides are better because of the addition of an IP?
You can do either.
Or so on and so forth.
Yeah, I
You
would
can do
say
either.
I like.
And they will be of equal quality.
I
think so. Yeah, I think so. So long as it's something innovative and executed correctly.
Yes.
I mean, you can pull something off a shelf and throw it in there and argue, oh yeah, it's fine. You know, I've defended them before, but Flying Carpets of Aladdin, technically they're themed, but it's an off-the-shelf spinning ride, and there's there's nothing to it, and it's executed poorly.
Yep. You can also see Triceratops Spin. That's an original property. They didn't base that off of it.
Yeah.
But it's still a spinner that's off the shelf, slapped down.
Well, I mean, like Pirates and Haunted Mansion, like those two stand out because they're completely original. And those two are like, arguably, those are almost perfect rides, right?
They are.
But I'll counter that with Peter Pan and Flight of Passage as
and
two
Alice.
incredibly good attractions that are based off of IPs.
So IPs don't contribute to whether it's good or bad.
Well, Disney doesn't throw the money they threw at Flight of Passage ever again. That was outside company. No, like seriously, like how much money they throw at Flight of Passage? Like it was the most expensive ride and land expansion of all time.
And it's paying off in spades.
Well, yeah. Nathan and I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. I think, and it gets a little bit away from picking the single best idea for an attraction, but I think there needs to be a happy medium between both concepts, IP and original, because the originals are great and again executed well, become classics, Haunted Mansion, Pirates. But also on the flip side of that, when you intermingle IPs in them well with other attractions that fit well in the land, it almost makes those IPs feel more real and they come alive a little bit more. Yeah. To me personally, like it becomes more cohesive. It's supposed to me, it feels the way it's supposed to feel, like you're actually experiencing these things and they are real because it's tied to things that feel more real.
Immersion.
Yeah.
The best part is when Disney actually builds something we already know into a story, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, this makes way too much sense. Like this is perfect. And that's when you know it hits. And then you have other rides where it's like, this makes 0 sense. And I just want to get off this ride. Or I want to ride it and get off.
You know what? A good part about, like, I'm thinking of certain rides that have, like, actors in them or hosts. Like Jungle Cruise or Great Movie Ride. Those rides, like, those are... The rest of them is still good. And like, Jungle Cruise maybe doesn't have a story, but it does have a live actor. So if you were to take that actor out of the equation, does that ruin the experience? Like, does that make it not a good ride? Like Great Movie Ride, for example, the host was like taken down, removed entirely.
You know, I would say that for Great Movie Ride and for the Jungle Cruise, both, they were designed to have hosts.
Yes.
So I think that because they were designed to have hosts, if you take the host out, you've taken out the heart of it. You could have designed that ride differently and not have had a host in it, and it probably would be okay. But I think because of the way it is, it has to have a host to exist.
It would be like removing the ghost host from the Haunted Mansion, or
Exactly.
the father figure from Carousel of Progress. Like you're missing something core to it.
I could picture Carousel without the father. It's just stuff happening on screen
Me
or on
and
stage.
Patrick Hackett coming out and saying like, "All right, here we go."
Hey,
God.
I have a question.
Ellen.
Just like the entire rest of the family's talking about how he went out for cigarettes one day and never came back.
Again, I'm going to go back to where's the first daughter? Where did she disappear?
Oh my gosh.
But let me ask you this question. So most of the things you guys have talked about that were non-IP, because that was the question asked, right? Is it IP or non-IP? Like or an original story? What's the best thing? Most of the ones you talk about that are non-IP are sort of the classics, the originals to the park, the Haunted Mansion, Small World, Carousel of Progress, those things. So since they were like classics, I feel like they've been grandfathered in somehow. Do we, because we're super fans of the parks, do we kind of scoff at IP because we feel like Imagineering should be stepping up and doing brand new stories? Or are they doing IP because that's what today's like general audience wants?
I would argue yes and no, because I think there is an expectation, but I mean, we do have some fairly recent ones. I mean, Everest is only 2006. I mean, it's not super recent, but it's fairly recent. And then even Dinosaur is much beloved.
Yeah.
But Dinosaur is based on an IP.
It's
Very
not.
loosely, like
Not a good one. I didn't say that. I just said it's based on an IP.
That's actually.
I would almost argue that.
Fair point.
I would almost argue, though, that it's almost coincidental. Like, they do nothing in the ride to indicate that it is. Like, I think you're supposed to infer that it's the same dinosaur, but there's nothing in the attraction itself that gives you any kind of clue.
If I remember right, it used to be a bit more explicit, and they backed it off.
Really?
Yeah, it used to be called Captain to Extinction
Right.
Dinosaur.
So they removed a lot of the references to that, and the attraction became stronger because of it. So taking the IP out of the attraction made that better.
Okay,
And
let me throw one more element then in, because you've used two examples, Everest and Dinosaur. Both those have thrill attractions. I mean, thrills to them.
yeah.
They're not. I mean, I think that may be a necessity in 2018 that it have some sort of a thrill element to it. Whatever it may be. I mean, it doesn't have to be a scary thrill. It could be like Soarin', where it lifts you up and there's some kind of a thrill to it. But I think that needs to be something for the perfect attraction. Because as I'm thinking through Tower of Terror or Guardians or some of those things that I think are more fun, they have some sort of thrill element. They're not shows. Would
you consider there being a thrill element to the safari now that they removed the awkward bridge?
Oh, I love that.
There's a thrill of seeing the live animals, I think. Again, it doesn't have to be a scare thrill, but it has to
they could
be
just
some
jump
thrill.
in your vehicle anytime. That's horrifying.
The ostrich could stand there in your pathway and block you for
2 hours straight.
Well,
Exactly.
to that end, it's not to say an Omnimover ride is bad, though. It's just, it's not. Is there like a perfect Omnimover ride?
Haunted Mansion.
Called Space
Haunted
Mover.
Mansion, yeah. Haunted Mansion has so much story and immersion now.
Well,
I wouldn't say Ariel's Undersea Adventure is like a perfect ride using the exact same system.
I think it's the best Omnimover they've made in recent history.
That's true.
Of course, what other Omnimovers have they made in recent history?
That's
Nemo.
also true. Yeah.
Ugh.
Nemo
No,
is an
no,
example
no.
of not a good Omnimover.
Yes,
Like-
that's a bad.
Okay, why does that go under the bad category though? Was it because of the IP or just like the lack of
No,
theme?
it was the lack of commitment to the theme.
Uh-huh.
And it just kind of was like, it's
Lack
the
of budget.
movie. But again, they didn't even usually when they take the IPs, they write a bit of a new story in it. It's like a Star Wars extended universe novel. They just take a little piece from that universe and write a story around it, as opposed to just slapping it on. And this one felt very slapped on because it was just the same beats as the movie.
And the reason I hate the live shows is because it's like, we're going to retell you the story of Frozen. And it's like, why don't you just like write a new thing that's 20 minutes long? Nope, it's too hard.
Well,
Or, sorry, it's too creative. Sorry.
Be careful with that, because Peter Pan is let's just tell you the story of Peter Pan. Winnie the Pooh is let's
Yeah,
tell you
and
the story
it's
of Winnie the Pooh.
Alice in Wonderland. I mean, and those are beloved.
But it does those effectively. It effectively communicates the story.
Does.
Whereas the Finding Nemo one feels very surface level.
Yes, that's fair.
Plus, it was an overlay to the original Sea Cab. So
exactly.
Yeah. So here's one more food for thought, because I'm sure you want to move on from IP versus not IP. But it is we talk about, like, again, we're fans of the parks and the classics. Does Universal have anything that is non-IP? And if they do, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's got to be a reason, right, that they have no original ideas over there, that it's all based on IP. I mean, I can't think of anything. I'm going through my head trying to remember if there's anything that's not IP.
Islands of Adventure in the part where it was
Poseidon?
Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, Poseidon.
Well, I mean, you can make an argument that mythology and other existing...
It's almost an IP.
Yeah, it's not an original story. Yeah.
But Dragon Challenge comes to mind. That was based off literal nothing.
Yeah. It may be ugly to say, but I would almost argue that with the exception of certain elements of Harry Potter, that for the most part, yeah, they're themed to IPs. I don't know that they always do it very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of it is just something slapped on the side of a roller coaster, and hey, it's themed to an IP.
Well, we're not talking about
doesn't
Six
count.
Flags, but yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you said slapped on the side of a roller coaster. Like, I don't know, you take a roller coaster that just is called California Screamin' and you slap
the Incredibles on it.
Okay,
and it made it worse, though.
Yeah, it did.
I'm just saying, it's the same thing.
They put a good IP on a good ride and made it bad.
Slapping. No, that works. We have a lot of what makes a ride good, but we're not talking about like what makes it inherently bad. I mean, okay, so Journey into an Imagination. Is it because of Eric Idle or something else?
Eric Idle is never the problem with anything.
No. I think it's the
It just
script.
wasn't the solution.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's the script. It's the fact that they tried to overcompensate. And I'm sorry, a lot of it to me is the skunk room.
Yes.
And that's what I call it.
I think the skunk room embodies all the things that are wrong with the current version.
Yeah.
So overcompensation.
You're almost kind of finding a little bit of charm in it, but you're also kind of annoyed. And then that happens and I'm just done.
Well, let's go back to what Tyler said about removing the skippers from the Jungle Cruise. I think with Figment, they just removed the heart out of that.
They took him out entirely.
And when we were listening to the Back to the Future, I just basically sobbed through the whole thing, trying to, like, looking back at what the original was like and how brilliant it was set up. And they just took what was there and just took away from it. They took a third of the track away. They took the turntable away. They took the Dreamfinder away. It's just, they didn't really add anything to it. They just took away from it. And it stripped it down to something that, we still as fans go back to now that it has Figment sort of back into it. But it's just, it was the seemingly perfect attraction that they just felt like, we need to mix it up just for the sake of change.
Yeah. Like, there was absolutely no reason to change it. I think it predates a time where they understood, at least in Disney World, that they had timeless attractions.
Or characters, specifically.
Yeah.
Well, I think there wasn't, because, I mean, it was still somewhat young. So that, Disneyland, you have your untouchables. But I don't think that they had any attractions that they necessarily considered untouchable at that point. Except maybe some of the clones like Pirates and Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about him as a character. Do you ever think like he's become kind of an icon for the park? And Orange Bird is sort of an icon that neither of them were IP. Do you think that can ever happen again? That they can create an original character that people would embrace that wasn't part of an IP?
I'd say my go-to is Mystic Manor because they created Albert the Monkey. I'd call that a perfect ride. Anytime people are like, there's too many IPs, and I'm like, they did Mystic Manor, and that was like in the past few years.
Yep.
That's just a matter of like they didn't even copy Haunted Mansion. They're like, we needed to make our own thing for this park. And
I would say that
Henry Mystic. They created the whole concept with the music box, and Danny Elfman music, and Albert the Monkey as well.
you sold me. Show over. That's the perfect
Yeah,
ride.
I was gonna say.
We're done. That's the
You ended
perfect
the
ride.
show half an hour early. Well done. Good night.
Way to
everyone.
go. Tyler for the win. Absolutely.
I was going to wait for the end of the show to be like, oh, Mystic Manor covers all this.
Well,
Wah, wah.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, well, mostly because I think we're getting a little off track here, and I want to pull us back in. For the sake of time, I think we should pick an IP to base a ride off, but we have to pick a strong IP. So what's a ride that you think should exist? And then we can figure out what would be the perfect ride system to go with it.
Without the really easy answer of saying literally anything going into studios, what park is missing something and what is it missing?
I mean, Hollywood Studios is missing half the park.
Right. Like I said, other than the easy answer there, what's
I would say, I would argue.
I was going to say Zootopia as well, especially because they have all that land that was supposed to be Tiger River Run, or they've got a lot of space. They could use something kid-friendly or family-friendly, actually, but something cool, and I think Zootopia would fit the bill perfectly.
I 100% agree with you there.
I don't know. I like Zootopia. Don't get me wrong. And obviously with the animals, it kind of, I don't know. There's something to me that seems more real about Animal Kingdom that I don't know if I would want a whole land themed to an animated IP.
But Pandora and Yeti and dinosaurs.
Right. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. But when you walk through the museum, and the Yeti for people in Tibet and all is a very real thing. Like they genuinely believe that he exists. And I mean, Pandora, you do get transported to this place, but it's supposed to look like a real place. Like no matter how if you were going to do Zootopia beautifully, like it should be done, it is going to have like an animated element to it. I don't know if that really fits with the rest of Animal Kingdom.
I think you sort of have
that beautifully, because I agree 100% where Utopia would crush it at Animal Kingdom. It would take it over the top where Animal Kingdom would become a half-day park. It would be a full-day park. But on the same note, I love Animal Kingdom is the new Epcot. That's where you see real animals. You learn real education about real things happening in the real world. And Epcot's just floating in the distance doing, the same old Disney stuff. This is real. You see real tiger cubs. You see like a brand new giraffe cat. It's that rhymes. It's perfect. It's so great. And then you can mix in this little bit of fantasy. So, with that being said, I hate to add Utopia, but on the same note, it is the perfect fit. It's amazingly perfect.
Is there an IP that goes in here that fits better than Zootopia and that gets rid of these problems that we're having?
Lion King.
No.
I think Lion King.
Lion King's already there. It's already there.
But
it doesn't have a ride.
Right, in a larger sense.
All right, what do you want? Everyone goes through a weird journey, gets a little bit of red on their forehead.
No, we should put a roller coaster in there and call it the Circle of Life. But bunch.
Let's take a quick minute to go through the chat really quick. See if anyone else has their own ideas. People to feel involved in the experience. Interaction. And I have interaction is good, and I have false interaction written as bad. Where rides at Universal like, you're gonna do this, and then you just sit and ride it and you don't do anything, like Spider-Man. What was it? Fast and Furious was the worst ride I ever went on.
It's rough.
I think the marshmallow scene is the scary part. Yeah. People Mover has no scary part. Wait, I guess the dark part. Yeah, Templar Prophet. That's fair. Yeah. When you go into Space Mountain, you're like, oh my God, are we, like, as a kid, you're like, oh, do we have a Space Mountain? No. Yeah. And then there's Slinky Dog Dash. Yeah, that's one of those weird loose framing.
I like Slinky Dog.
We were talking about that before.
Mover doesn't be a scary part because it doesn't have a plot. And
it's a
Dog has It has a
But
scary
it does.
part.
It has a plot. It's he built a coaster in his backyard. It
It
doesn't have
does.
to do anything. You're in his backyard. It's like a kid building nothing. Who cares?
Like it also has a scary part. The launch in the middle.
The
Yeah.
Lion King pal around.
Oh my gosh.
It's just a Ferris
Okay.
wheel with faces
Like
and
that-
characters on it.
So go back to then Jungle Book. I mean, Jungle Book was something
Oh.
that we had rumor of, like.
Now that would be cool.
All right.
So maybe
I'm in.
Jungle Book could be there because it's not represented, and it's the last movie Walt worked on, so it's a Disney classic, and it's got animals.
Yeah.
And they've got
Well,
the
now-
live action version.
I
so
was gonna
it could be
say,
real.
so you could, yeah, you could push it almost more in that direction a little bit to make it more coherent with the rest of the area. I like that idea.
That's solid.
You know what makes a good ride is when you think it's going to be a routine expedition and then something goes terribly wrong. That's a staple of like Disney Universal attractions, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh
but
no,
almost every
something has
attraction
gone
you say
wrong.
an X goes wrong. You're gonna do something and then something goes wrong. You're gonna fly to
Mhm.
Mars and then
Perfect.
there's an asteroid system. Something goes wrong.
You get in the elevator.
You're gonna get in an elevator, then something goes wrong. You're gonna get on a rocket ship and then something goes wrong.
You're going to journey into the movies and then something goes
Something
wrong.
goes wrong.
Can
Something
I,
Kind of
goes
like
wrong.
Indiana
You're gonna
Jones.
say it
Something
on the
goes wrong.
ride.
Hey, well, can I add one more thing to your list, Tyler? Which I don't know. I don't think it has to be there, but I love as something that is like a staple for a Disney attraction is at least some sort of animatronic.
Oh,
I mean,
I definitely have
Yeah.
that.
yeah, because I mean, we haven't really talked about that, and you can think of things that don't have animatronics in it that are fine. But I just like Soarin' doesn't have an animatronic in it, but that to me, like the one they added at again, it's in California, but the Guardians Tower, the rocket is just so amazing.
Yep.
And
It is.
it goes again back to sort of telling the story, putting you in some place that you've never been with a character that shouldn't really be in real life. I mean, I'm excited about like anything that has a new animatronic. I'm always excited about.
I'd even go so far as to say animatronics that are also the host, like how Jungle Cruise or Great Movie Ride has a host. There are rides where the animatronic is the host, like Star Tours, where C-3PO is right there the whole time. for
Yes.
example.
Yeah.
Or like you were talking about with Mystic Manor.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tour around with Albert like he's there the whole time. He's not
Yeah.
like in the ride. You know what? We have ET. That ET ride is great at Universal. I mean, it's not
Where
Disney,
is?
but ET Adventure, where where is it? It's in Universal Studios, Florida.
Yep.
Who said where is this? I could have sworn somebody said where is this. That's why I
I
explained.
think
where it was.
somebody did. I don't know who said it.
But that one is like a little animatronic ET in the front of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And that ride's
Very
pretty
true.
Okay, so it has to have our ride has to have at least a new animatronic in it,
Or a prominent animatronic.
or an animatronic of a prominent figure that is impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive new technology. That's what the people like.
So I don't
And not quite something like Shaman of Songs from River Journey, because as impressive as that is, it's there for a brief period at the end, and
Like King Kong.
it's not something you really get to enjoy the entire time. Like Rocket,
Yeah.
you have this big long pre-show you get the entire time.
Yeah.
Other rides where like they're in the car with you, like C-3PO, that's right there with you the entire time that you're going through this
Pockets on top of the elevator too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't
Like-
see him, but
Right,
we,
but
it's
you
made clear
see
that
the
he's up
shadow
there.
there. He's
Yeah.
following you along the whole time.
you
He may
just
not
said
be an
that?
animatronic the whole time, but still.
I'm sorry.
So
Yeah,
it
you
is.
said that.
So did we decide on an IP, or is there other
I
options?
don't. Well,
Well, let's say
Somebody
it's
in
not
the
an
chat
IP.
suggested if we're sticking with Animal Kingdom, a North American area.
Animal
Yeah.
Kingdom, maybe. Bambi international guests might be interested in seeing bison and deer and wolves. Yeah, that actually makes sense.
what's a good?
You can open a little
Wait,
zoo in the
oh,
Canada
whoa.
Pavilion.
We could make so this is North American, right?
Uh-huh.
We make it about the forests, and the big new animatronic, or one of the big new animatronics, is the Wendigo from North American folklore, and it's just the Yeti animatronic, but it works, and then we have
Got
the
'em.
perfect ride.
That could be on our That could be on our fake Canada pavilion ride, barreling over Canada.
Yeah.
There's just a giant Wendigo that attacks.
You're going into the forest for a camping trip or some other reason. You're scientists or something, and you go in, and then something goes wrong. It's the Wendigo, and we have these. I guess we could have more than one Wendigo animatronic and blend the 3D animation with the Wendigo animatronic. That would be cool. Ow.
I added something to the list here, which is we need Michael Giacchino music, because he did the new version of Spaceman at Disneyland, and that song is amazing. He did Spaceman Mission 2, and that song's amazing. He recomposed the music for Incredicoaster, which from what I've heard, I haven't heard clean audio of that yet, but from what I've heard, that's also amazing. And if Zootopia is one of the ones we were considering, he already did the soundtrack for Zootopia. He may as well do the rest.
Hey, you said you had Joe Rohde's personal notebook. I mean, do you have the anything from Tony Baxter? Can we steal the Western River Expedition plans somehow?
I don't see anything. As I said before, Joe Rohde's journal consists entirely of the phrase "I will fix the Yeti" in increasingly frenzied handwriting for the full length of the worn leather-bound journal.
I promise.
Exactly.
All right, so we have about 15 minutes or so. Let's go over what we have so far.
Okay.
So what makes a bad ride? We have false interactivity. We have when a ride is being like retold to you, like with poorly execution though, like the Finding Nemo ride, for example. Just slapping a theme on, like Incredicoaster, no, that doesn't work. It would need to be something entirely new. We also have overcompensation. Which is, sorry, Ashley, that was yours. How would you even define that? Like, what's an example?
Of what?
Overcompensation.
I think I know what you're aiming for, but I want you to try and word it.
Oh, jeez. I had it a minute ago.
Yeah. It's on the tip of my tongue on how to describe it, and I'm not sure. It's the way it tries so hard to be funny, but it ends up just being embarrassing. I think is the way you feel more embarrassed than entertained when you're watching it. I think is what we mean by when it's overcompensating.
Well, in that case, I just added something new to the bad list. Comedy. Anything that's inherently trying to be funny, it's not funny.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, except Jungle Cruise.
Except Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise is funny because it's trying to be bad funny.
Yes.
I was gonna say, but yeah, because it's like just all dad jokes and awful puns.
But like laugh floor.
Yeah, I mean that's its shtick. I mean, that's what it does. I think for overcompensate, like when they took away a good theme from, and really, in my humble opinion, all of Pixar Pier. They should never have done that to that gorgeous pier. They should have just left it alone, let Toy Story be its thing.
If anyone heard the song that was played during Serial Late, my favorite line that I wrote for that was, is there need to really re-theme a pier that's already pier-themed?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what were they thinking? Like, that to me is over. And again, Incredibles, why are they on the roller coaster?
Because it's being dedicated to them.
Why?
There's a roller coaster at this, it was like, was it Metroville Pier? It's not really clear if it's.
It is,
Metroville.
I think, in the.
There's like, we already have this roller coaster, and thanks to the Incredibles, we're gonna make it an Incredicoaster. How do you feel? And they're like, eh.
Yeah, like they're entirely neutral on the fact that this ride is being rethemed to them, which
is also
the only
weird.
reason that I think this is great.
Except Dash is like, I'm so excited.
They realized it was a bad idea, but they couldn't stop committing to it, so they just hung a lampshade on the fourth wall, and it works.
All right. Well, I also have here gross out effects. You know, there's some things where they try and make it disgusting, and that's not fun.
Never.
And also, instead of plussing a ride, they minus it by taking something away rather than adding to it, i.e., figment. So that's our list of bad things. Now, I think we've crafted what makes a great ride. So let's go through this. So we have a 3-act structure, like Act 1, where the ride sort of begins in the queue. There's a pre-show, and then there's a story itself in the ride with some kind of ending, a la like Star Tours, for example. The theming has got to be impeccable, like Pandora you need a amount of detail. The execution has to be there as well for something like Pirates of the Caribbean. Animatronics, there definitely has to be animatronics somewhere in the ride. It also helps to have some kind of host or someone guiding you through what's happening, which may or may not also be an animatronic. There's got to be a scary bit. We have to fear for our lives at some point. As I have tons of Imagineering books, and one of them says, death or fear minus death equals fun. And they use that to define the Indiana Jones adventure ride. And I totally agree with it.
Yeah.
Something has to go terribly wrong about like 5 minutes into the ride. There's got to be some kind of interaction. You have to do something. It's got to be thrilling. Maybe it has to have Michael Giacchino music. Does anyone else, before we sort of go over like what the perfect ride would be, though, does anyone else have any things for stuff that makes a good or a bad ride?
It's something that you can take your kids on. Honestly, like assuming that they meet the height requirement. Like I'm not saying that all good rides have no height requirements on them, but it's something where if you meet the height requirement, I don't have to worry about the content in this attraction. All good attractions should not need the yellow circle with an exclamation point in it.
The perfect ride has broad appeal, is what you're trying to say. Yes.
Yeah, like Toy Story Midway Mania. I mean, that's one, or Toy Story Mania. That's one that where it's kind of, it's for everybody. It's got a lot of cool elements into it. I'd rather not have to wear 3D glasses, but other than that, I mean, I think that's a cool one. But like to piggyback on what you just said, Ben, about like, you know, taking the whole family, there are some rides that are restricting people for their size. Like,
yeah, this is true.
Like Avatar, Flight of Passage, like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, just because of the way it's built. So it should be something that could, you know,
it's got to be a ride vehicle that can fit everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know, I've been taking notes this entire time. First of all, we're going to share this entire list of good and bad at some point on our Twitter. But you know what? I think we're on something good with Zootopia. Let's imagine something like this, and I guess people can add or remove whatever they want from it. But like, what if you are on? Because we forgot to talk about boat rides are great. So what if the queue or the pre-show area is like a boat ride into Zootopia? So like, you can separate people, get them into the attraction and slowly rather. And then when you get there, Nick and Judy are going to take us on like a ride along. And you can have like Nick and Judy animatronics like in the front part of the vehicle, like they're steering it, which is like a reason why we're getting into the ride.
Why not? Why not? It's like a boat tour in Italy, except it's through Zootopia, and they can just be like, all animals need water, so there's a river that goes all the way through Zootopia, and then you could even have the scary part is that the blueberry thing happens again because that's all we have, and the scary animatronics are like the predator animals going crazy. And we can still have the Yeti animatronic just as like a cat man or something, like a panther man.
It could be like the old whatchamacallit, Kilimanjaro safaris when there used to be like a truck driving beside your truck.
Sure, yeah, and you
are chasing bad guys. Yeah. So that happens on the ride as well.
You can have a section where you go through a tiny animatronic, the rodent section of Zootopia. Yeah, and you make that miniatures and animatronics. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I think you put it all in. I mean, try everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And it covers everything. There's like an intro. Like what is Zootopia? We find out. We know who Nick and Judy are, or if we don't, we get up to date on them. And then there's like this sort of cop chase story. And I mean, it would be a good thing to like Zootopia already portrayed cops as sort of like a lot better in sort of media and stuff. That's a whole separate thing. But like in this case, you're on like the side of good, like with the cops, and you're trying to save Zootopia from some evil plot or something. You're on a regular drive and something goes wrong, and then we need to tag along.
How about this? The framing device is that Zootopia has opened for tourism to encourage economic growth or something like that.
What if they're trying to reintroduce humans into the environment?
That's actually, that's much better. Yes.
Now you get to watch what the process is for like reintroducing species into environments from the perspective of the species being reintroduced.
There we go.
And that's the reason why we're there. It's not we're animals.
Yeah.
And it's
like,
the reason
that's the
why
reason
it's an animal
humans
kingdom.
are
We now have
Humans are
edutainment
just a
in here.
different kind of animal. That can be a line in the ride that Judy or Nick says. They're just like,
Mhm.
humans are just a different kind of animal.
Yeah. And I mean, this could very easily, like, at some point during the ride, like, there might be other animals that are de facto racist against humans.
This is true. And
like,
that's
don't let a human in here. They'll turn this into a sewage plant. I don't know.
What
You mean like Hopper in the Bugs Life?
Yeah, very similar to that line of logic.
No one will notice.
What would be the interaction here? Like they would not give us guns. What if like how
honorary bug eyes?
Like what if we have a blaster, but it's like the antidote or something? So instead of like shooting people to like hurt them, you shoot them, and then they're like, "I'm okay now, thank you."
What? You know what ride has the best interaction? I think we all know is Mission Space. I think
pushing buttons that do nothing.
That one most clearly makes you feel like you're doing something. So I think something similar to that, where we push buttons and it does things. Here's the jet engines button or something.
Oh yeah,
like
that'd be good. We have a bunch of panels
investigating.
Like, exactly.
What if you're trying to like over the course of this, you end up trying to solve something that's gone wrong, and like steal the mechanics from Mike and Sully to the Rescue with the flashlight guns.
Oh yeah.
You use these to look around for clues, and you point your flashlight at it and find it. Nick and
that would be a dark ride.
And after a set amount of time, if you don't find it yourself, they will find it for you. But
did we agree that this was going to be like a boat ride or something?
I think that was the original idea.
Dinosaur kind of vehicle.
I think that was how we got into the land, but I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, dinosaur kind of vehicle works because you have the benefit of speeding up, slowing down, sort of tilting left, right, up, and down, and everything, and feeling like you're in a vehicle as well.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think this is actually like a really good idea. This is the first time we've done something that's ridiculous, but it actually sounds feasible. Here's the question though, and because we want to clearly sell stickers of this online later, what is this ride going to be called? It has to be like the Zootopia something or other. Like, how the new rides are like Star Wars Smuggler's Run. Like Star Wars is in the title.
Yeah.
Zootopia, the fast and the furriest.
I love it.
Gosh.
Done.
Oh boy.
We won't top that.
Does anyone else have one?
Nope. That's gonna sell way too well.
Yeah.
That I gotta write this down right now.
Like you said, that's going to sell way too well.
Yeah.
Furriest. That's amazing.
We did it.
Just think of the merchandising for this too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you got your gift shop with all your Zootopia plush, and because it's already an IP. And
Would it be considered racist in Zootopia gift shops to sell like foxtails and rabbit tails and stuff like that? Like they have the Pandora tails and all that stuff. Would that be considered crossing a line in that universe?
I mean, if you're going full on theming, probably, but somehow I feel like they would do it and nobody would really give it much of a thought other than us.
They'd call it disguised or something. You have to wear these, otherwise they'll.
The animals will know you're.
They dress up as sheep at the end.
No,
they wear like sheep costumes in the universe.
So why would humans wear animal costumes? But I guess yes, it's the same principle as using a disguise. Anyways,
I mean, I do know, but
Yeah.
Fast and Furious was a Roadrunner cartoon. Get out of here with your facts, Dream Finder. That's in the YouTube chat. I'm sorry. Zootopia Spotted. Oh, that's good too. Get extra points for like the tiny animals. Now here's my question. At the end of the ride, do we turn towards a mirror and they're like, "You're honorary animals now," and then we see ourselves as animals?
It's like what, a Snapchat filter?
I was gonna say it's literally just the Snapchat filters.
No. Like the whole point of the ride is that like humans are animals too, and that we're all together in this. Like it's trying to break down that barrier of like human superiority over animals. It's like we're all living creatures here on this same planet together. Quit mucking it up.
You know, it'd be cool if you were talking about a boat ride, is if we could incorporate, since we don't have it here in the Americas yet, that Shanghai Pirates kind of a boat ride thing where you point people in the direction that you want them to see. I would love to see something like that where you move through it.
Oh yeah, like the motion vehicle boat ride stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
Certainly do that.
I think, we pretty much nailed it with the idea. And wait a minute, Tom, what's under this table we're under right now?
Oh, it's a dusty file folder, and it says "My Dream," and it's signed by Walt Disney himself.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Ride Rehab. If you're just tuning in, this is the WDWNT Toys for Tots Marathon. We're streaming live for 50 hours straight for charity. We have hosts and other friends from WDWNT who are providing awesome content to you this whole time. So be sure to donate and share the stream around so others can also see and donate. Toys for Tots is a program run by the United States Marine Corps Reserve, which distributes toys to children whose parents could not afford to buy them gifts for Christmas. So no matter what holiday you celebrate, no child should have nothing this holiday season. So please make a donation. We'll do a little wrap up at the end of this of who's been donating this entire time. If you enjoyed this part of the stream, this has been the Ride Rehab podcast. We'll be returning with brand new episodes starting on January 7th.
7?
Yeah, 7. And then the 7th of every month after that. The podcast is available on Google Play, iTunes, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. You can learn all about this show and listen to some bonus episodes and content on riderehab.com. Be sure to follow us at Ride Rehab on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we'll see you for the return of Ride Rehab and this weird ongoing narrative we have on January 7th. Also, thanks to everyone else who was on. Ben Harris.
Hey, thank you.
Pete Carney. They're around. Rob Whiteside.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Ashley Jasmine.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
And is there anything missing, anyone?
I think you got them.
I think we got them all. So for the last time, I'm Tyler Mann.
I'm Thomas Kiernan.
Thanks so much for listening to Ride Rehab. And when the stream returns in approximately 20 seconds, Ben Harris will welcome us to the incredible world of fun and games, including WDWNT BRP. Enjoy.
Is that it?
I think we're done.